Hey guys, so we're gonna continue to learn how to solve our equations. Yay! I know, fake excitement, but oh well. Okay, so here's our expectations. You're gonna know how to model and solve equations with variables on both sides of the equal sign. Oops, I put in an extra variable. So you will also understand that you can solve the unknown variable and you will be able to write the steps to solving an equation. So Okay, so here's our parts of an equation. We have a negative 12, that's considered my coefficient. My x, that is a variable. So anytime there is a number next to a letter, that will be called my coefficient. The letter is my variable, and my 4 and my 40 are pretty much loners, but they're also called our constants. So my loners are considered constants. I'm constantly lonely. Okay, so not really, but yeah. So my coefficient is a number in front of a variable multiplying my variable, right? So a number next to something means they're multiplying. A constant is a fixed value or a number on its own. So again, it's a loner. And my variable is a letter used to represent an unknown value. Okay, so please make sure you're taking notes either on your virtual journal or your regular journal. Just in case you forgot this should be a refresher from 7th grade. But if you forgot, start taking notes. Put a pause and let's write it down. Alrighty. So now we're going to learn how to solve our equations with variables on both sides. Okay, so I color coded this, and we're also going to be working on this side and then on my right side. So this is my steps, and then we're actually going to put our steps into some action. Alrighty, so step number 1, combine like terms if necessary. So like terms means I have x and an x, so I have to combine these. Do I have another loner on this side? No, so I'm just keeping my loner here. But I do have to combine my blues. Right here I have my blues, my variables, so I don't have anything else to combine it with, so I'm just gonna leave it the same. My two loners have a buddy, so I have to make it into one. So combine them. Okay, so part 2, we're going to collect our variables or move our variables to the same side of the equal sign. Step number 3, we're going to move all of our constants to the same side of the equal sign. And number 4, we're going to remove our coefficient with inverse operations. So same vocabulary we saw on the last slide. I hope y'all remember inverse means the opposite. So if we're adding, the opposite is subtracting. If we're multiplying, the inverse is dividing. Okay, so step number 1, combine like terms. So I'm combining my variables. 13 plus 1x gives me 14. I have nothing else to combine my 6 with, so just bring down your orange. Okay, my blue is by itself on the other side of the equal sign, so I'm just bringing it down. But I do have to combine my 9 minus 7. Okay, so my 7 gives me 2, or you can do it on your calculator. 9 minus 7 equals 2. Okay, so step number 2 or 3, I'm going to move my variables to one side and move my constants to the other. So blue's on one side, orange to the other side. Okay, so I'm going to move my orange to the right side. So I have to do my inverse operations. So the opposite of 6 is positive 6. Remember, I have to create my 0 pair. So negative 6 plus 6 gives me 0. So again, I have to create my 0 pairs with my constant in order for me to move it to the other side. And what I do to one side, I have to do to the other. Remember, we have a balance. My equal sign means I am a balance, so it has to be even. If I forget to add it to the other side, then I'm not going to be even. Okay, so just make sure you don't forget this. So I'm just going to bring down my 14x. And now I have equals negative 2x plus 8. So 2 plus 6 gives me 8. Alrighty, so next step, I have to move all of my variables with my variables. So I have to put my blues with my blues. Okay, So I have to use my inverse operation. So create my zero pair. So -2 plus 2 gives me 0. Okay, so boom. And what I do to one side, I have to do to the other. So +2 plus 2. So here's my zero pair, and 14 plus 2 gives me 16. And let's not forget our constant, we're going to bring it down. Okay, step number 4, we're going to remove my coefficient with inverse operation. So coefficient is my number in front of my x. So 16 next to my x means I'm multiplying, and the opposite of multiplication is division. So I'm going to divide both sides by 16. So I remember my goal is to find the value of 1x. So 16 divided by 16 gives me 1, and that's what I'm looking for. And now 8 divided by 16 is my answer. So remember, we can simplify this fraction. How many times can a certain number go into 8 and that same number go into 16? So I'm just going to simplify it with 8. Or you can just do 8 divided by 16, and it's going to give it to you in decimal form. So 0.5 or 5/10. So you can write that right here. Sorry. So 0.5. Yay, I did it. Okay, and now our fifth step is check your answer by substitution. So we're going to substitute it. Remember, an example of a substitute is pretty easy. Let's say I'm going to school. I have to miss a day, so here comes a substitute teacher to replace me. So we're going to substitute a substitute teacher, me with the substitute teacher, sorry. So we're going to substitute my x with my x. Okay, so I'm going to replace, it says x equals 0.5. So I'm just going to replace all of my x's with this 0.5, or with the fraction. Okay, so I have 13 parentheses times 1/2 plus 1/2 minus 6. Or you can put 13 with the 0.5, 0.5, 0.5, right? You can choose. You can either keep it as a fraction or as a decimal. Okay, so now we're going to combine them. Or if you do it with the decimal, you can do 13 times 0.5 plus 0.5 minus 6. Okay, so just make sure you're plugging them back in. You can go into your calculator and just start typing it. So 13 parentheses 0.5 plus, what was the rest? 0.5 minus 6 gives me 1, okay? And then I have to do the same thing to the other side. So -2, and remember, they have to equal the same. So -2 times -2.5 plus 9 minus 7 gives me 1. So does my 1 equal 1? And is that true? Does 1 equal 1? Yes, so that lets me know I am correct. I did solve it correctly. So you can either use your fractions, just follow the steps, or you can go ahead and use your calculator as well and plug in your decimal form, whichever works for you. Either one of them is correct as long as it says something equals something. If they're not equal, then that means we did something wrong and we're going to have to go back and solve our equations again. Okay, so yay, you got this. So make sure you use a calculator. So let's review our steps. Step 1, combine like terms on each side, so variables with variables and constants with constants. Step 2, move your variables to one side and move your constants to the other side. Yes? And step number 4, we're going to remove our coefficient, aka the number in front of my x, by doing inverse operations. And remember, inverse means the opposite of. So if you're adding, you're going to subtract. If you were subtracting, you're going to add. If you were multiplying, you're going to divide. And if you were dividing, you're going to multiply now. Yay or nay? I hope you're saying yes. Okay, and once again, if you're forgetting this, make sure you wrote that down in your notebook. And step number 5, we're going to substitute back to check our answer, okay? So use substitution to check your answer. Make sure you do that step. You're trying to check yourself. Alrighty. Okay, so now we're going to learn the traditional method. So on the top of your journal or the virtual journal, it should say or write traditional method. Okay, so again, step 1, do I need to combine any like terms? Is there anything I need to combine on the left side? No, I have 1 and 1. Anything on the right side? No. Okay, next step, I need to create a zero pair using inverse operations with my constant or my variable. So I'm going to move my constants to my right side just because, and I'm going to move my variables to the left side. Okay, so if I was adding a 20, I'm going to do the inverse, which is subtraction. So 20 minus 20 is going to give me 0. Remember, I need my 0 pairs. And if I subtract 20 from the left side, I have to subtract it from the right. Okay, so negative 6 minus 20 gives me, oh, I wasn't even typing, negative 26. Okay, so now I have negative 7 equals 6x minus 26. Okay, step 3, create a zero pair using my inverse operation with my variables. So now I need to move my variables with my variables. So I have to do my inverse operation, which 6 minus 6x gives me 0. So if I subtract 6 from my right, I have to subtract it on my left. Do not forget that if you subtract it on your right, you have to subtract it on your left. Okay, so negative 7 minus 6 gives me negative 13. So now I have negative 13x equals negative 26. So bring down your constant. Okay, last step. You're going to divide by your coefficient using your inverse operation. So I have to do the opposite of multiplication, which is division. So divide by negative 13. And if I divide on the left side, I divide on the right side. So now I'm going to do negative 26 divided by negative 13 gives me 2. Okay, so now I have 1x equals 2. So I'm solving step 5, x equals 2. So I'm done with this process, but now I have to do step number 6. So check your answers using substitution. So I'm going to substitute everywhere that had an x with my answer. So I had an x next to my 7, so I'm just going to put 20 minus 7 times 2, right? X equals 2. So I'm getting rid of my letter and putting in a 2. Equals 6 times 2 minus 6. So all I did is I substituted my x and I put my answer. So 2. So now I'm going to do 20 minus 7 times 2 equals 6 times 2 minus 6. So I just have to do 7 times 2 gives me what? So I'm just going to go. If you don't know your multiplication facts, that's okay. Oops. I obviously can't read my numbers. So 7 times 2 gives me 14. So, and do the same for the other. 6 times 2 gives me 12. And then last step, just subtract. 20 minus 14 gives me 6, and 12 minus 6 gives me 6. So the 6 equals 6. Is that true? Yes. So that means we did it correctly. So you did it. So give yourself a little hand clap for yourself, whatever you need to do. And that's it for my equation 1. Now I need you to do equation number 2 on your journal and try to follow these same steps, okay? So follow everything that's here and try to do it just like this. If you need to color code them, that is perfectly fine. If you need to draw squares around your x's and circles around your constants, that's fine. Do what you gotta do. Okie dokie. Okay, so now we're also gonna learn the box method. So it's super simple, it's the same thing. but we just added a little box. So that's why it's called the box method. So step 1, we're going to combine our like terms again. So my variables is my green. So variables go on the left side, constants go on the right. So green goes on the left, white goes on the right. Okay, so we're going to combine our like terms. Sorry. Step 2, we're going to move my variables to one side, and when you cross the line, you change the sign. So I'm bringing down my -7. Okay, so I'm just going to bring down my -7. Boom. You do nothing to it. Okay, and now I'm going to change the sign right here. And if you cross the line, you change the sign. So my 6x is going to cross the line. So I'm going to have to change the sign. So on the right side, it was a +6. So I'm crossing this line, making it a -6. Okay. Now we're going to move my constants. So I'm actually going to bring down my -6. It's already on the right side. So just bring it down. And then I'm going to move my 20. So if it was a +20, I'm going to make it into a -20. I cross the line, you change the sign. So remember, if you cross this line, you have to change its sign. Okay. So now we're going to have to add them. So -7 minus 6 gives me -13. Let's check. -13. Yes. And we had an x, so make sure you're putting down your x. And -6 minus 20 gives me what? -6 minus 20 gives me -26. So -26. Okay, my last step is I need to divide by my coefficient. So divide by 13, divide by 13. Okay, so now I'm going to have to solve. So -26 divided by -13 gives me what? And -13 divided by -13 gives me what as well? Gives me 1, so that's why I still have 1x, and then divide these and it should give you 2. Okay, next step, you're going to check your answer by substituting. So again, we're going to replace every x that I have in my original equation with my solution. So I'm going to replace my x's with 2. So now I have 20 minus 7 times 2 equals 6 times 2 minus 6. And you can either solve it each, or you can just plug it all in the calculator. So I'm going to show you this way. So 20 minus 7 times 2. 20 minus 7, and make sure you're using your parentheses, gives me 6. And my right side, 6 times 2 minus 6 gives me 6. So the 6 equal to 6. Yes, so that means we did it correctly. Once again, try it out on equation number 2. I need you to try it by yourself. Make sure you're pausing this video, taking your notes. There is no rush as long as you're trying to actually understand it. And anytime you need help, make sure you ask me. Okie dokie. So now, sorry, I had to drink some water quick. So now we're going to use the problem solving board. Okay, so it's super easy to follow. My first section is you're obviously going to read and see what is my question asking me. So you're going to underline your question and just write it in here. Okay. Second box, think. So what are the facts that are given to you? What do you already know? What do you need to use? What's important info? Step 3, we're going to solve. So make sure right here you're showing your work. And the last step, you're going to check your answer. So was your answer reasonable? Did you actually answer your question? So right here, you're going to be substituting and asking yourself, did I answer what they asked me in my question? So we're going to read it actually. Sorry. Sharonda started with $18 in her cash box for the concession stand and is selling small candy bars for 50 cents each. Henry started with $12 in his concession stand cash box and is selling small bags of chips for 75 cents each. So for what number of cells will they both have the same amount of number in the cash boxes? So what is my question asking me? It says, for what number of cells will they both have the same amount in their cash box? So what is the same amount in their cash boxes? Okay, next one. What are the stated facts and unstated? So Sharonda started with $18. So she started with, so we're gonna highlight everything Sharonda with $18 for her in her cash box and is selling candy bars at 50 cents each. Okay, so that's Sharonda's part. Now let's look at my boy Henry's. Henry, he started with $12 and is selling small candy bag of chips for 75 cents each. So we want to find out how much they have for in the same amount. Okie dokie, so Sharonda started with $18 and she's selling candy bars for 50 cents each. Do we know how many bars she's selling yet? No. So we're going to have to place my variable with the fact that we don't know, with the number that we don't know. Sorry. I don't know why I said fact. Henry, he started with $12 and is selling chips. Sorry, there goes my Hispanic part coming out. For 75 cents each. Okay, so Sharonda is the green and Henry is the purple. Okay, so whatever is by itself, whatever they started with, that's going to be my constant. So that's my loaner number. So I'm going to put Sharonda equals Henry. And now I have, she started with 18 and she starts selling money. So if you're selling something, you're obviously going to be earning money. Okay, so that's why we're putting plus. So 50 cents each bag, X. I don't know how many bars of candy she's selling. So boom, just throw in the letter. And Henry started off with $12 and he's also selling. So we're going to put plus bags of chips at 75 cents each. Do we know how many bags of chips he's selling? No, we don't know it yet. So remember, my question again is asking me when are they selling the same amount? So when are they making the same amount of money? Okay, so now I'm just gonna have to solve. So step one, I'm gonna move my variables to one side and my constant to the other. So boom, I'm gonna subtract 50 cents x and subtract it from the other. Remember, what I do to one side, I do to the other. So 0.75 cents minus 50 cents gives me what? So 75 cents minus 50 cents gives you 25 cents. So we're just gonna bring down my 18. Remember, I got rid of these. Bring down my 12 and I subtracted them, so 25 cents x. Okay, so now I'm gonna move my constants to the other side. So constants with constants. And I'm gonna do it by my inverse. So 12 minus 12 gives me 0. And if I subtract 12 on the right side, I'm gonna subtract 12 on the left side. 18 minus 12 gives me what? 6. So now I have 6 equals, and I got rid of my 12s. They became a 0 pair. So I'm just gonna bring down my 25 cents and my 6. Okay, so now I have to divide. I'm going to do the opposite of multiplication, which is division. And 6 divided by 25 cents gives me 6 divided by 0.25 gives me 24. So 24 equals x. So that's telling me that Sharonda, I was going to call her Rashonda. Sharonda has to sell 24 candy bars in order to have the same amount of money like Henry. So, and Henry has to sell 24 bags of chips as well. So I'm just going to go ahead and substitute my x's with my 24. So I'm replacing my x's. So I have two x's. So I need to see two 24s in my equation now. So I should have 18 plus 50 cents times 24 equals 12 plus 75 cents times 24. Okay. So again, you can either solve them or just type it out in your calculator. So I'm just going to type it out, skip a step. 18 plus 50 cents times 24. Enter. That gives me 30. So that's telling me she sold 30. I mean that she earned $30. And Henry did 12 plus 75 cents times 24 and 30. Okay. So did they both end up with $30 in their box of cash by the end of the day? Yes. So they had to sell 24 each. So Sharonda sold 24 candy bars in order to earn $30. Henry had to sell 24 candy bars in order to end up with $30. So did they end up with the same amount? Did I answer my question? 30 equals 30? Yes. So my answer is reasonable, which is telling me that I am done.